Have you ever heard of the fragrance hierarchy, or considered the impact it should have on your fragrance purchases? The hierarchy of fragrances is an effort to categorize fragrances based on their brand position, exclusivity, ingredient quality, and price range. Ideally, it helps consumers understand what to expect when selecting a fragrance. We want to be clear that where a fragrance falls on this hierarchy doesn't necessarily reflect its quality. That's going to vary from person to person. After all, a fragrance by any other place in the hierarchy would smell as sweet. If you can still hear me over the collective groans of the Shakespeare fans. The traditional fragrance hierarchy. If you've heard of the fragrance hierarchy, you've likely seen these tier levels, based off where the fragrance can be bought or who makes it. They are drugstore, celebrity, designer, and niche. This is a helpful list, but you know us, we prefer to be as thorough as possible. So today we'll be exploring a more nuanced and expanded list that builds off the conventional one with a total of 7 categories. Our fragrance hierarchy. We'll start with one place you never want to buy fragrances from, off of a blanket spread in a public square, or down a dark alleyway. Yep, we're talking about bootlegs. Bootlegs are fake versions of a fragrance, illegally marketed as the real thing, but they should be avoided at all costs. By definition, the person selling you a bootleg is lying to you by misrepresenting the maker of a product. So you cannot trust the quality of the fragrance. And it is more likely that cheap, illegally made fragrances will have ingredients that don't function well, or could even harm your skin. Bootleg fragrance operations are also commonly used to finance organized crime. Similarly, avoid products being peddled in a suspicious way, because even if they're real, they could be stolen. Basically, when buying fragrances, avoid sketchy alleyways. You never know what might be lurking. Drugstore. It is important to distinguish between bootlegs, fake versions of a fragrance illegally sold as the real thing, and dupes, legal, cheaper alternative duplicates to a more expensive fragrance that claim to smell similarly to the more expensive fragrance. Dupes are commonly found at the next tier level of the hierarchy, the drugstore. Drugstores are a good place to discover an array of different scents, all at very reasonable prices. Now, because these fragrances are a lower price, they allow you to experiment with new scent types and varieties to see how they respond to your natural musk. And if you find a drugstore scent that you like, you can save money by employing it as your daily scent, so you can save the good stuff for special occasions. Many fragrance devotees swear by drugstores, and certain brands have something of a cult following. That being said, due to the limiting factor of price, drugstore tier fragrances usually won't have the diversity of fragrance types and unique, rare scents, or the overall staying power of higher-end products, because to stay in their price point, they rely on more common synthetic ingredients and lower aromatic concentrations. To learn more about these concepts, check out our general fragrance guide. Some typical examples of drugstore-level fragrances include Jovan Musk, Florida Water, and Old Spice. Want to see a guide to our favorite low-cost fragrances? Let us know in the comments. We'll note that some drugstore category fragrances are technically aftershave balm and lotions, and not conventional fragrances, but when it comes to smelling great, they work just fine. And they were, for many men, the only scent worn during the golden age of menswear. Preston, for example, has many positive associations with the classic ice blue Aquavelva aftershave balm, and occasionally still enjoys wearing it as a conventional fragrance. Drugstores can also carry fragrances that are higher up the hierarchy, like our next example, celebrity. Celebrity tier fragrances on the fragrance hierarchy are so named because they usually rely heavily on branding and name recognition as part of their sales pitch. Basically, the selling point is the celebrity, and not necessarily the quality or the value of the fragrance. Most of these fragrances are individually endorsed by celebrities or famous icons, and accordingly bear their names. Common examples include Michael Jordan, Intimately Beckham, and 007 by James Bond, which we can only assume was shaken, not stirred in the mixing process. These fragrances can be very hit or miss, because the celebrity is the main draw. They sometimes cheap out on quality and have the same or lower standard as drugstore tier, at elevated prices because of the name recognition. And even when higher quality ingredients are employed, they are usually at lower concentrations, like eau de cologne that reduce longevity and sillage. Unsure of the differences between terms like EDC, EDP, or EDT? I'll explain everything in this video on the confusing aspects of fragrance. That being said, like drugstore tier, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with celebrity fragrances, provided that you feel that you're getting genuine value from the fragrance. That doesn't exclusively come from the fact that Dolly Parton is on the box. Another example of a branded fragrance is the fashion house, or designer level of the fragrance hierarchy. These fragrances are made by companies not originally associated with fragrances, but that have expanded into the market. So think of fragrances made by Giorgio Armani, such as Acqua di Gio and C, both fragrances Ebb likes, Burberry, and Versace, whose blue jeans is one of Jack's favorites. Because fashion houses and designer labels tend to have more of a reputation to maintain, they often utilize superior ingredients, higher concentrations, and generally higher standards than drugstore or celebrity fragrances. And some brands like Tom Ford or Mont Blanc have thoroughly developed and cultivated the fragrance divisions of their companies and established solid reputations in the scent community. Of course, there are some companies at this level that trade largely on their name recognition and sell fragrances at inflated prices that don't represent good value. As always, don't rely on brand names alone when buying fragrances, or any products for that matter. We will now take a moment to comment on an interesting liminal space in the fragrance hierarchy, department stores. We cannot really speak of a discrete tier ranking for this level, because it can actually encompass fragrances at every level that we've discussed thus far. Higher-end department stores can carry products all the way up to the top tier level of the fragrance hierarchy, becoming a source of a truly impressive range of scents at different price points. Department stores can also be somewhat of a graveyard of fragrances, whose time in the limelight has passed. We're looking at you, bargain bin. Obviously, there's a big difference between Macy's and Saks Fifth Avenue, so the sorts of fragrances available at your local department store will vary based on the nature of that department store. We're now getting pretty close to the top of the hierarchy. Fragrance houses are companies known primarily for making, well, fragrances. Sometimes you don't need to think too much into things. These companies can have expanded into other products, but stuff that smells nice is their forte. As a dedicated fragrance maker, these companies are more likely to utilize higher quality ingredients, aromatic concentrations selected for their functionality, and to maintain a library of interesting, unique fragrances, suited for multiple seasons, occasions, and formalities. You didn't know that fragrances could have a formality? I explain more in this video on pairing your scent with your outfit. These companies are also more likely to provide expanded information about their products, going beyond merely listing fragrance notes and detailing their production processes and the rationale behind fragrance offerings. This obviously helps you as the consumer. Many of these companies have iconic scents that they make available not only as fragrances, but also as soaps and body washes, shampoo, and even room diffuser oils. This is a great option if you like to avoid scent confusion. Please don't think that every single product you own has to match perfectly. As I discuss here, that the art of layering allows you to wear different scents at the same time. We consider the following brands examples of this: Ortigia Sicila, Diptyque, one of my favorites by the way, and Jo Malone. Of course, just because a company focuses on fragrances, it doesn't mean those fragrances necessarily justify the higher prices. Being expensive doesn't make a product great. Being a great value makes a product great, with a cost that justifies the product. In the conventional fragrance hierarchy, what we refer to as the fashion house tier is referred to as niche, because these companies are in the particular niche of fragrances. Today I'm wearing a different scent called Calle Oche. It's an X-Rate fragrance from Fulton & Wark. I've been experimenting with some other fragrances from this company for the last couple of years, and it smells incredible. I'm pairing that with my outfit today, a lot of navy, a lot of stripes. So a rugby-inspired blazer, a striped shirt, blue pants, brown dress shoes, and of course, Fort Belvedere pocket square and socks. Now for more great accessories like these, check out the Fort Belvedere shop here. Now we prefer, however, to include one final tier that we call artisanal, consisting of niche within the tier of fragrance houses. Think of it like the creme de la creme. Makers at this level consist of high-end companies that exclusively develop and sell niche fragrances for a discerning clientele that love the rare and wonderful when it comes to olfactory sensations. These fragrances tend to be very expensive, but the best examples of companies at this tier do their best to prove that the cost is worth it. They offer a carefully curated selection of rare and exotic scents, as well as unique twists on classics that provide an unparalleled wearing experience, thanks to their use of the finest ingredients, carefully combined in skillful melodies, with minutely controlled duration and sillage. The worst examples at this tier, conversely, trade on their reputation and legacies to justify exorbitant prices. They hope that you'll assume, well, if it's this expensive, it's gotta be good. While quality has a price, price is not always quality. And that applies even at the top tier of the fragrance hierarchy. We understand that people can have different definitions of what can make a fragrance house truly artisanal, but some examples we would suggest include Roberto Ugolini, Creed, and Clive Christian. Obviously, such a rarefied tier is not for everyone, nor are we saying that this level is automatically the best, just because it is the most expensive. We're just saying that this space on the fragrance hierarchy is defined by companies that choose to set themselves apart by catering only to very particular clients. But not being one of those clients does not mean that you don't appreciate fragrances, don't value quality, or don't smell good. It just means that fragrances at this tier aren't for you. And that's why we have a whole hierarchy to choose from. Exceptional fragrances can be found anywhere on the fragrance hierarchy, and members of the Gentleman's Gazette wear drugstore brands, all with the same discernment as artisanal fragrances, because we understand that the fragrance hierarchy is a tool intended to help you make informed decisions as you shop for products that suit your needs, budget, and lifestyle. Let us know in the comments at which level on the fragrance hierarchy you like to shop, or if you prefer to employ different tiers. And on the sartorial content hierarchy, we hope that you've ranked today's video in the artisanal category.